Hi, today we're going to apply some of the things that we've learned and automate a website together. Specifically, we will be going to a very well-known website, Amazon.com, and we will look to buy ourselves a jacket using Playwright. We'll not go through the whole procedure, and I have given this a brief look so I know more or less where to find the things, the elements that we're going to click, and so on and so forth. But this is being done live, so I do not know exactly what I need to do to achieve the objective. But the interesting part of the challenge is to, of course, find that out as we go, as is normally the case, right? So let's do a little bit of exploration first. So we will land on Amazon.com, right? And probably not want to change that address. And we're gonna hit today's deals, right? And see if we can get a nice jacket on the cheap. And maybe we can just select the fashion category here. And here, actually, we're gonna shop men's coats and jackets. And I like this bomber jacket over here, so maybe let's take this one. And yeah, we can try and change the color, maybe select the size, set it to large. And then we can hit the buy now button, right? Something like that. Then of course we'd be redirected back to the sign in, and we don't have to go through that right now. I think the initial sequence is already quite interesting. So how we're going to do this is we're going to start from scratch. We're not going to use any recorders. We will essentially write down a script step by step and quickly iterate on it and try to come up with something that is achievable in a short amount of time, a reasonable amount of time, but also that is, reasonably robust. Let's see if we can make that happen. So here I have my Visual Studio VS Code open. I'm just gonna start a new terminal, and we can create a new directory here. Let me make that a little bit bigger so you can see. I'm gonna create a directory, call it automate together. I think I have one already. Let me delete that. So we're gonna delete that existing folder, create a new one, move into it, and here I'm going to actually install. Well, first we have to do an npm init. I'm gonna do it the quick way with -y. So we just set up a new node project here. I'm gonna do a quick npm install save dev playwright. So we this might take a little while. Was rather quick. So let's now check out this folder, right? So I'm just gonna open it up, and all right, so we have our package JSON here and Playwright 117.1. Great. All right, so let's now create a new file in here. I'm gonna call it script.js, right? I'm not very, I don't have a lot of fantasy here. I'm just gonna open that up and let's get started. So of course, before we even start looking at the website, we want to set everything up and navigate to the website, right? So I'm gonna just do a const, let's use Chromium here, and start requiring Playwright. All right, so let's open up an async function and add, and we're gonna add a const browser and do the usual. So await chromium.launch, then we go with the context, and the page, all right. Now we can just do our await page.go-to, and that's gonna be, of course, our Amazon.com URL. After that, we want to be mindful and not forget the browser.close. because you don't want this to get stuck and run forever. And so we said that we would iterate quickly over this, and that also means trying it out when it's just essentially an empty script. So let's go. And that seemed to work. Just took a few seconds. We can also, whenever we're unsure, we can go back here, do a headless false, and kick it off again. We see the browser open up. And in this case, it's clear that we achieved what we wanted to achieve. So far, so good. So let's open up our browser here once more, and let's take a look at the steps that we need to take, right? So once we get to Amazon.com, okay, there's always, there can be some unpredictability in the pop-ups that you get. Cookie notices, here, they see that I'm not in the United States, and so they look to deliver to Germany, and they ask me if I don't want to go to the German website. There's, always a little bit of you want to be mindful of what's happening, right, when you first start. And certain things might not show up immediately once you look at the homepage through the browser. Then when you go through Playwright, and you have an incognito session, things might look a little bit different. But in this case, let's just try out the first step so things don't become too confusing. And if that fails, we can quickly backtrack and see what we missed. So I'm opening up the DevTools here, of course, right-clicking and then choosing Inspect. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that we can all read. And in the Elements tab, I can start inspecting. So again, we're not going to use any recorders this time. We're going to just click around and inspect elements. So we decided to select today's deals up there in the top left, right? I'm just going to click here so that I can, here in the top left of the DevTools, this allows me to, of course, select an element by clicking on it. And today's deals, that's the button I want. All right, what do we have here? What are our options? So there's a bunch of things here. I'm not super sure about this data CSA C slot ID. I'm not sure how stable that is. Might be, might not be. Might be from a framework that I'm not too familiar with. Might be from something that Amazon is doing on its own. If you're not sure, you probably don't want to risk too much, right? So in this case, what I'm gonna do is just play it safe. So I am thinking that we are, we are on a website that's localized. It's Amazon.com. This is gonna be in English. For the foreseeable future, I imagine. And today's deals is probably a text string that might be, let's say, reasonably strong. It's nothing prevents Amazon from changing that tomorrow, but for now, given the situation here, I think we can take that as a first selector, right? So I'm gonna just quickly go. Actually, I can copy the text here just to be sure. And then I can go back to VS Code and just add and await page.click and enter a selector here. This is going to be a Playwright text selector, so that should do it already. Let's try it out. I'm going to leave the headless false out there because that's helpful. So let's rerun our script. Take a look at what's happening. Seems like we were able to click that, but we didn't get to see what actually happened here. So let me just do an await page dot wait for timeout. This is temporary, right? So this is something that we will remove before the script is done, right? This is not something that you should use in production scripts. I'm just adding a fixed delay of 2.5 seconds here at the end, just because I want to make it easier for myself to see what is actually going on, if we're actually going through with that navigation, right? Again, this is just a debugging tool, nothing to use in the real world. Interesting, what we're seeing now is that we have this additional pop-up up there. Very nice. That's not gonna cause our script to fail, but I'm actually gonna open the DevTools in here, and hopefully I can select that, even though there is so much shift, layout shift that is. And I am going to see what I can do to dismiss that thing. Data action type dismiss looks like something that just might be helpful for us. Unless we have a nice ID at some point, but I don't think so. All right, let's try that out. So we're gonna add another click here before our existing one on today's deals. Sorry, this is gonna be page.click data action type equals dismiss, right? So we should be able to do it like that. And this is an attribute, right? So we have to surround it with square brackets. Let's try that out once more. Okay, seems like both buttons are clicked. First off, the dismiss button, which then frees up the underlying today's deals button, right? This is something that happens, right? So you might run into a scenario in which a button that you want to click is, or any element that you're trying to interact with, might be covered by a pop-up or another element, something else. And then if it's reasonably easy to do, you might want to dismiss that element just through the UI, right? Otherwise you might have to find a different way around that problem. But yeah, for now, for us, this worked quite nicely, it seems. So we're gonna move on. So after we have selected that today's deals, where are we landing, right? We're now actually landing on this page right here, Epic Daily Deals. All right. So again, there are faster ways of doing this, right? You can use a recorder to save you some time. You will have to do some tweaking afterwards, but today we're not aiming to do everything, let's say, the fastest way. I want to sort of show you what I'm going through when I do this all manually. The value in that is that you actually learn a bit how selectors work, and you see a real world website, right? Moving on, we have to select the next button, right? So we need to select the fashion button here. Let's see what we can do. So here we have data test ID, which to me honestly looks good. We could also use the data ID. Anyway, they seem to match, right? So oh, this is just deals. This is also saying carousel. All right. I think, as far as this one goes, I think the data test ID is fair game. Do we have anything else? So here we're looking at a bunch of there's an image inside a span, inside a div, inside a list element, a list item. I see we have a bunch of classes, a bunch of area attributes. I think we're just gonna use the data test ID. All right, let's try that out. So let's see here. I want to add an await page.click. This is also an attribute, so again, square brackets. And that was, I think, carousel. Let me see that again. There we go. Carousel deals collection fash. Should have saved that immediately, or copied that immediately, because my memory is not that good. Okay, so now we wrap everything there with square brackets. We're ready to go again. Let's run a node script. Everything good so far. And it seems like the fashion button is not getting clicked, which is interesting. Let's Let's stick around to find out why. So here, the button will actually time out. Sorry, the button. the page.click will time out when trying to click the button, right? And that is by default 30 seconds. And now we're gonna see what this is complaining about. All right, data action type. Why data action type? Was that? Oh, I think I got confused, right? So that's not a data action type. That's a data test ID. You see the problems with multitasking. You're speaking, you're looking around, you're typing, and something gets wrong in the typing and takes you a few seconds to figure that out. All right, so the script actually worked out fine. Now we are on to the next step, right? So now we are getting close. We are, once we click the fashion button here, we are finally able to choose the category of clothing that we're interested in. Again, we're after a bomber jacket, so in this case, this is the button we need to click, and let's see what we have at our disposal here. The alt looks fine. Or what do we have? We have an area label. I think that's also fine. And let's see. So I'm going a little bit up the hierarchy here. And it seems not so reasonable for me to expect to find anything very interesting here, because these are all, we're looking at buttons here, kind of, we have this kind of component hierarchy in a way where you don't expect this specific button to have maybe a specific ID or too much unique about it in this page, right? So let's go on and then try and use that area label for our click. So again, another await page.click. And now we have to do square brackets area label, right? I'm going to wrap that in single quotes. Wrap that in square brackets. Hit node script.js. Remember to save the file, of course. Otherwise, you're in for some headaches. And here we are. Oh, I think we actually, this is going to be interesting. I think we landed in the women section. We're not so lucky to be in the first line. So we actually have to use a little bit of creativity. So right now we wanted to select this button here, and this one got selected instead. And that makes sense. They have the exact same text. They probably have exactly the same area label. So actually, let me verify that. Yeah, that looks pretty much the case. So how do we do this then? Well, I'm pretty sure that there are only two elements with this specific, we're using the area label, sorry. With this specific area label attribute, we're gonna jump into the console here, and let me clean that. I'm just gonna do a $, and I'm gonna enter the same selector here. So this, of course, returns, as did Playwright, of course, the first element. Now, when I actually do the $, we should see hopefully just two. Yeah, two of those, right? 1 and 2. And that's, that kind of shows us that if we want to get multiple elements, this is what will show up using this selector, and that means that we can then proceed to select a specific match, right? So in this case, I think it's rather unlikely that women and men categories get switched. So I think having a logic that simply goes in and selects the let's say the second line and then the third element of the second line is just fine. In general, you always have some sort of assumption when you don't have like a unique ID, right? that you're going after. In this case, yeah, we can just go then with the second element of this selection. So this will actually not go by row, right? That's more of a conceptual thing that I was thinking about. It will just find these two elements, and then we will want to take the second element in that selection. So yeah, let's take a look at how Playwright allows us to do that, because that's, Playwright's documentation is actually awesome. Some of the best documentation I've read. And what you want to take a look at here is the selectors, right? So we're just gonna go to the main selectors page. Oh, that's not it. So let's go back to the search, element selectors. Yes. So, all right. Already the index is helpful. Nth element selector. That sounds pretty interesting. So let's see how that works. Nth element selector, I think this has changed a little bit since last time I've looked at this. So you can narrow down the query to the nth match using the nth equals selector. Unlike CSS, nth match, provided index is 0 based. Okay, that's good to know. So actually something like that here could be interesting. I see this looks like nth equals -1. I wonder if that's, oh, I guess that's the last button. Okay, that's cool. So I think for our case, we will just want this to be nth equals 1. So let's try that out. Maybe I'm wrong. So yeah, what we're doing here is that we're combining, two different kinds of selectors. So we're gonna do the double greater than sign, save the file, and try again. Trying again at every step, instead of trying to write the the whole script at once, is normally gonna save you quite some headaches. Oh, this is interesting. Something's changed here. We see that we have an interesting behavior. This did not pop up before, right? This is something that we might have to dismiss. Might also not be popping up every time. So that's gonna add some, potentially some headaches for us, but let's try and handle this one too. So here you see we're looking for the dismiss button, but that didn't show up. This other one showed up instead. Okay. So what does that actually look like when we open up our DevTools here? Let's do the usual. We'll select that, and interesting. So here we do have an ID for that span. You don't need to tell me twice. I'm just gonna copy that and see if we can dismiss this. Now this is gonna be tricky because we need to understand when that comes up, and handle things accordingly, right? So let's see if we can figure that one out. So that's an ID, right? So hash symbol right before that should be enough. And let's try and run the script again. So here we go. That is gone. And now the other dismiss button is not showing up. All right. So how to handle something like that? What is going to happen now is that, one thing that we're waiting for is not showing up. So we'll try and click it. We'll try and wait for it, and that doesn't show up. That's gonna throw an error. This is not ignored, right? You don't ignore a button when it doesn't show up. That's not how Playwright works. So in this case, you can see we're timing out here. Page.click, timeout 30 seconds exceeded. What I want to do here is maybe wrap this in a try catch to start with. So I want this to not raise an exception that will fail my script, right? So if these are if one of these two click actions is not executed, I want to still go ahead and I think this is probably quite right now it's not going to work for every scenario, but let's see if it unblocks us real quick for the moment. You can see now things worked a little bit different. We had the I believe oh, sorry, I got that wrong actually. I put the two dismissals, I separated them and I put the wrong item in the try catch. Little problem there. We're gonna fix real quick by rerunning everything, seeing how things are working now. So we are dismissing one element. Second element does not seem to show up. But our script shouldn't fail this time. Let's see if we got that right. All right, we click today's deals and we land, one click away from our jacket. We're almost on target. Okay, so that meant also that our instruction here was actually spot on, that this nth, this part of the selector that we added, this nth operator, was very helpful. So now what we can do is, again, go back to, in this case, not the docs, but our target website that we're automating, jump into coats and jackets under 50. Finally, we reach the men section here, and now we can actually select our bomber jacket here. So this is clearly, we're looking at like a grid of different elements here, and we want to select the second one. So here, let's see what we have at our disposal. So, okay, we do have a few things. So I guess we can see on Alt here that we might be able to use. I can imagine that things in the product section might change quite quickly. We don't want to do something like, use a numerical ID. We can use an nth, just try and get all the products here and select the second. This might not be a bestseller tomorrow, right? And it might maybe drop to, the 6th position or something like that, or the 3rd position. And then we would be clicking the wrong element. We don't want that. We actually want this jacket, right? So what I'm gonna do is, let's see if we are lucky going up the hierarchy a little bit. So this is just the image element, and then we have a div here, anchor, span, just a bunch of classes. Probably not a lot of unique stuff here, huh? One div above and one div above, and this span here. Okay. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of nested elements here. And oh, this one seems a bit more interesting to me. So we do have a UUID. That is supposed to be a kind of unique ID. So what I want to do is see if we cannot use that to select the right element. We also have an interesting sequence here of characters that we also might want to use, but I kind of like the fact that this is telling me it's a UUID. So let's see how things play out here. I'm just gonna switch back to my editor and add that click. Add a click against the data UUID attribute here, which I'm gonna wrap because it's an attribute again. So I'm gonna fire that off. We see our dismissal logic works so far, or it seems to. Actually, one thing that we want to do is probably shorten those timeouts, right? So let me see if I'm correct. I think, actually I know that, but it's good to check. It's good to keep an eye on the docs. You have to know your way around the documentation. It's really, there's almost everything that you want to know about Playwright, and a great deal of what you want to know about browser automation, I would say, is here. And learning to read this stuff and navigate the documentation is essential. Is an essential skill. It's an essential practice. And in this case, what I want to show you is, when I don't know exactly how something is supposed to look like, I know that I need to use the page.click method. I can just look it up here, and then sort of I see, what arguments that's taken. A selector, right? We're familiar with selectors by now, so we know sort of how that works, its complexity. Then we have an options object, right? And in there, one of the things that we can modify is the timeout. Maximum time in milliseconds defaults to 30 seconds. So in this case, we want to keep a timeout, but we don't want it to be 30 seconds. We don't want to wait that much. There's no, we know that the action there is gonna be over, I think, in 5 seconds. So there's no point in waiting anything longer than that. If something doesn't show up within 5 seconds of these dismissals, then we can proceed. So let's then go ahead. Might be useful to actually decouple these two, and maybe do some additional optimization as well. But for now, let's just go ahead. You don't want to optimize too much too early on, right? But don't try to get everything perfect immediately. That is, can actually get you in trouble more often than not. All right, interesting. Here it seems like our click is not going through. So we are on the page. We're looking at that bomber jacket, and it seems to me that we're gonna hit the 30 seconds timeout on our last click. That's good. We like a challenge. And we must be almost there. There we go, exactly. So data UUID, waiting for selector, the click timed out. So what's going on here? Let's take a look at our selector first of all, right? Was this maybe not so stable as we thought it would be? I'm just gonna open again the inspector here in this, wow, that's small. In this already open Chromium window. And so let me actually check this. We go up a little bit. We should find that data UUID. And that looks different. So actually that is not a static UUID for this specific item. Maybe the data ASIN is. I guess what we can do is also force a nice reload of the page. And actually what we see is, at least on a hard reload of the page, this data ASIN attribute seems to not have changed, while the data UUID definitely did. So, all right, let's see if we can use that to our advantage. Just gonna switch back here one more time, and we're gonna go ahead and try this out. So this is gonna change to data ASIN, if I'm remembering that correctly, and we're gonna interrupt the previous running script. Gonna run a new one after making sure we've saved. Okay, let's see which dismissals come up. All right. Ah, nice. That's our jacket. We're almost ready to hit that buy now button. So what does that look like? Once we're here, we want to, oh, all right, true. You have to select a size. So we're gonna select the size. This is a nice drop down. I think it could be a good challenge to use this. So what we could do is select this drop down and choose the right option, right? So in this case, let's see. So we have classes, data action. We have an ID actually. This might be interesting. I think though we want to get the select item here, the select element on the page. We can see all the different options, right? And what I want in this case is specifically the name, I believe. I believe that's oh no, we actually do have an ID here as well. This is nicer. So okay, let me just make sure I understand this right. Sometimes, you know, this looks too good to be true. So we're gonna enter an hash symbol, and we get exactly that element. Are there more than one? I don't think so, but you know, better always to try it out. And you see, even when we do the $$ here, $sign, we get only one select element. That's perfect. So now what we can do is actually select, let's say, size large, for example. All right, how does that work though? Pretty much sure that we can look this up, right, on our docs again. And here again, you can see that we have an explanation, examples, right? And in this case, this seems pretty much what we're looking for, right? So we will have to pass a selector to match the, or to reference the select dropdown, and then we will want to choose the value that we want to select in that dropdown. In our case, will be probably large, right? Let's try that out. So let's see if we can get it at the first try. So we're gonna go back to our script, and folks, I can tell you we're getting close. So select option, and let me see here what we have as an ID, right? Native dropdown, select the size name. All right. Sounds like it could be what we're looking for. Don't forget that hash sign at the beginning. And then we will want large, we said, right? Large should be fine. So save and hit that script again. So here goes our dismiss logic. Seems good enough for now. We are not getting stuck. Okay. And looks like we didn't select the right size there yet. All right, perfect. So we went with a pretty low, let me just terminate this already. We went with a pretty low effort approach. Let's actually open that up and see if we cannot inspect that. So here I have, again, I have my select element, and then we have different options. And I will want, I could probably even go with the text, but I am feeling like actually, we have an ID again. So that is fine for me. So in this case, native size name 2, you know, it is to be seen whether this actually remains large, even though we have an ID there. But I think for now, you know, this should be good enough. Normally, I guess the options there would be deactivated and grayed out instead of just plainly disappearing. So yeah, let me pull up those docs again and take another look. So single selection matching the value, matching the label. I mean, what we might want to do is try and specify ID here. Yeah, so I think we probably can, actually, even use the element handle here. So there's a bunch of ways that we can go about this. Let's see if this is gonna work. Actually, it's been a while since I've tried it with just an ID here. This is actually, a learning opportunity for me as well. It's the beauty of doing things live. You have to figure out things on the go. And we're kicking off our script again. Dismissals and starting our navigation, ending up hopefully on our jacket. And actually we got size small selected there. I think small, excuse me, small is gonna be a little too small for me. Maybe a medium could do, It's American sizes or tend to be bigger, right? So let's see. What am I looking at here? If I select that, drop down available, all right, that's class. And we have, a bunch of different things there. I'm not sure why we ended up selecting the native size 0, it looks like. Let's give that another go. I'm very interested in seeing that again. So we hit Node script.js again. Let's see if our dismissal logic works just fine. Not worried about that anymore. And this just selected small again, which is interesting. Let's see if, let's play around with that a little bit. What if I set a 4 there? Is Playwright just too quick? Did I make a mistake in my selection? Am I misusing the select options method? We're still selecting small, so maybe we want to actually change this up a little bit. Let's try a different strategy. I think we might enter the value, for example, and see if that is changing things. So I could actually just delete this and enter the value straight up, I believe. Did I save that? Yes. All right. Here we go. All right, now we selected large. So we can go with a value. Seems to be working fine for our selection. And remember when I told you that we were almost there? Well, I said almost, right? So I have the black one already. So I think we should go with the, what is it, khaki? Yeah, khaki is, that's interesting color. I think, this is gonna, it's gonna brighten up my look a little bit. Let's see if we cannot buy that now. But first, what did I just click? What is that? So here we are. It's just a list item, right? And I think this should be an easy one. Yeah, famous last words, right? No, so let me kind of walk up the hierarchy here, and I think we got a bunch of things here. We got a bunch of IDs. I am kind of just wanting to go with that alt because this is specifying specifically this color here and this combination. Those IDs to me sound like, yes, they're unique, of course, but I mean, assuming that this is valid HTML, but I think these are kind of, they're not really tied. They're tied to the fact that this is like the 5th button here, but not with the fact that the content is the khaki K. Not sure why the K is there, but I'm probably missing something. But that's what I want to hit, right? So here I might, even though it might be a little bit counterintuitive, I think I might go with the alt text there and be sure to select this one instead. Imagine that, we have different, one more option here that becomes available. We get an additional square here with, say, the ID that this has right now. This gets pushed to the right. and the other one, maybe khaki without a K, is then what we are selecting. Now we want to make sure that we are selecting specifically this item over here, no matter how things switch around in the page. So let's see if we can do just that. I'm gonna use this as an attribute, so wrap it as usual. Let's see, so save and run again. Gotta be patient through the first few steps here. And here we go. So I don't know if you've noticed, but let's play that again. Okay, we can see here, we now have a different pop-up showing up that gets dismissed. We click today's deals, and we go to fashion and jump into here, and we select the right color. Size is still set to small. Did you notice that? So yeah, that is interesting. So maybe when I assumed that we could just select this based off of the value, this option here, this one might have been not a static value. Let's reload that page. And what does that look like? Oh, that looks like a completely different value. So, it's always good to verify that things are, as you expect. So maybe we want to try something else. I think we might even try, the text content. We might want to try having this done with the AD, but using the element handle. Yeah, I think this is there's probably different ways of doing it. Don't be afraid of trying more than one, right? So in this case, sometimes, it's an art more than a science, right? Depending on what works on a page might not work on a different one. It's not it's not about Playwright really, or whichever other tool you're using. Mostly it's about how the web pages are built, right? And what kind of assumptions you can make about how they will work. And so in this case, let's try something a little bit different. And in general, don't be afraid to experiment. So here we go. We do a select option here. We pass the ID again. We get rid of that value because that is not what we are going to be happy with. And going back here, I can actually, I don't need to select anything. I just wanted to copy that ID over here. Go back here, select that as a first element handle. That's an ID too. And I want to try out my changes now. So let's see if we actually can reliably select that drop down, or that drop down option. And in this case, it seems like we were not quick enough, or too quick, possibly. So the selection didn't happen, and it didn't happen in an interesting way as well. I believe we might want to take a look at that in slow motion, right? We might, there's a few different ways that we can go about that. I could add let's do like 20 milliseconds in between each command execution. That's gonna make things go a little slow, but that's what we want in this case. Yeah, something was not right with that specific step. So let's take another look. You cannot give up that easily. You gotta keep trying when something doesn't work. It's kind of the name of the game in UI automation. A lot of the stuff that you try does not work out of the box. All right, I spent quite a while actually trying to figure out the drop-down thing. And in this case, for some reason, the usual select options method didn't work for me. And that didn't work on the page and didn't work on the element handle. So what I settled for instead, after quite some trial and error and trying a few different things around, is these two lines here. So essentially, clicking. So going with clicks instead of selects, essentially, and finding a way to click the actual drop down and then click the actual option that we're looking for, right? Normally drop downs are not that hard to automate, and this one on the Amazon website seemed, maybe there's some custom behavior there, but it didn't seem that obvious. So now actually my new approach looks a bit more promising. So of course we go through our setup phase here. We go through the different deals here. We can select large, and then we should be able to select khaki as well. So I'm gonna uncomment that line over there, or khaki K, right? That's the alt text for that specific store item that we're looking to acquire. Okay. Seems good enough, right? Seems like we're getting there. Now we want to add to cart, or sorry, actually, we don't want to add to cart. We want to go ahead and use the buy now option from Amazon. So I'm gonna select that, and okay, there is an ID on that one, right? That's a pretty important CTA, I guess. And we're gonna take advantage of that. So wait, page.click, and we're gonna use an ID here, so that goes with the hash symbol in front of it. And let's see if we made it. So going through the initial dismissals, and now hitting our jacket, setting the parameters that we want, and hitting that buy now button, and we're taken to the sign in screen. So that was pretty much what we were trying to achieve. Few things. So first of all, of course, get rid of that ugly, evil wait for timeout that has no place in production scripts. And so what we have here is, it's not a complete test, if you will. We're really just writing an automation script so far. Actually, let's get rid of the headless thing here. We want to get rid of that too, because we want to take advantage of running headless, of course. That headless false was disabling the headless run option, of course. What we want to do, or what we might want to do, depending on what we're doing, is we might want to add an assertion at the end, right? So here, maybe we want to, check that I landed on sign in screen, or something like that. And we can use different libraries for that. Just expect, we can use chai. We can set up something with Puppeteer itself, essentially. There's many ways that we can do that, but that's kind of, past the point of this video. I think this took enough time. When you get started, kind of like doing a live automation bit like this, you don't know how long it's going to take. And unless you really do everything beforehand and write down all the selectors and figure out all the quirks, then it takes quite some time. So I think it took long enough. And, what we came up with is essentially a concise script that's going through quite some screens. It seems quite resilient, honestly. Our selectors are not perfect, but they're not terrible, right? There might be 2 or 3 chances to make these better and have them more, reasonably more future-proof for what we know of how, what we can assume that Amazon might change in the near future. We definitely are not going with, some terrible auto-generated, concatenation of 8 different dynamically generated CSS classes, right, or anything like that. So this is still quite reasonable and seems to work quite well. And this, all in all, this was just an example of how you can automate a a complex real world website. There is no no pretense here that we're doing something that is useful in the context of Amazon. Actually, keep in mind that it might be against Amazon's terms of services to use Playwright to, for example, scrape data off their website. That's of course something that Amazon doesn't want, something that you shouldn't entertain, I believe. And this is all for demonstration purposes, right? So this is, what you want to do is probably, if you're working in a company where you have to set up, Playwright automation tools, or you have your own side project, and that's already kind of complicated. This is, this kind of shows you what hurdles you might run into. And I meet a lot of beginners who maybe, they get discouraged rather quickly, and they're like, hey, I tried this one way, and this is what the docs say maybe, or what I've read on Stack Overflow, and it doesn't work. And so why doesn't it work? And what I'm trying to show here is that you have to be resilient. You have to find, you have to know the tools well enough that if if the hammer doesn't work, then maybe the screwdriver will, right? You have to try different tools and different strategies and try to either solve or dodge a problem so that you can get to your objective, which is ultimately a certain script that is performing a certain sequence of actions in a reliable and performant way. So yeah, I hope I've shown you something helpful. And this was the first automate together session where we automate a website together from let's say start to finish, and it certainly won't be the last. Thank you very much for listening.